The first one is Pedro Pinto, Consul General of Portugal in San Francisco. Then Sérgio Carvalho, Counselor responsible for legal affairs, oceans, and the law of the sea at the Mission of Portugal at the United Nations in New York. Then Barbara Bloch, Professor of Marine Science at Stanford, based here at Hopkins Marine Station. Followed by Tiago Pitta Cunha, did I pronounce this correctly, which is the CEO of the Oceano Azul Foundation. Followed by Stefan Marais, who's the founder and managing partner of Indico Capital Partners. And then to conclude, Jennifer Dianto Kemmerly, Vice President of Global Initiatives at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Pedro Pinto, Consul General of Portugal in San Francisco, to start us off. Pedro, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fiorenza. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you, and good evening to the ones that are in Portugal. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I wanted to start again by thanking you, in particular Fiorenza, but also Josh, Jennifer, Barbara, for welcoming and hosting this event. Within the purpose that we have, it was really important to do this here. If there are centers of excellence on ocean issues, the Marine Hopkins Center of Stanford and the Monterey Bay Aquarium are two of them. This location is fantastic. Just before coming in, I was recording some videos of the seals that are giving birth here to send to my children. It's really, really beautiful. So I with some positive envy of the location of where you work. But starting to introduce what we are here today. The United Nations Secretary General, António Guterres, which was a Portuguese former Prime Minister, has said that the ocean is at the nexus of a triple planetary crisis, with climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution and waste. Basically, although we don't see it, the ocean is on fire. Personally, as a surfer, I've witnessed the sea level rise in the Maldives, and it's really impressive to see the impact. In my country as well, Portugal, I think has roughly lost about 13 square kilometers of land because of sea level rise in the last years. Biodiversity loss, I've witnessed it also in Africa because of overfishing, for example. And pollution, perhaps the most impressive experience I've had was in Indonesia. Such beautiful place, and for a surfer it's a paradise, but the pollution that I saw, the plastic in the sea, it's something really devastating. So we are facing a planetary crisis, and when you have a planetary crisis, you need global action. So that's why we will have the United Nations Ocean Conference, which Portugal and Kenya will host in Lisbon in the end of June. The theme is Save the Ocean, Protect the Future. And the focus is, as Fiorenza just mentioned, on the Sustainable Development Goal 14, focused on life below water. And all this is within the United Nations Ocean Decade. There will be plenty of side events. I will underline just four. The Sustainable Blue Economy and Investment Forum, the Youth and Innovation Forum, and I'm on another room. I know we have, meanwhile, just between brackets, I know we have a whole class watching this program, and especially to you, younger people interested in the oceans. This seminar in particular, I think, can be very interesting for you. I know you will very soon go to Hawaii on a fabulous expedition. I just add that in Hawaii, chances are that 1 out of 5 people that you meet are Portuguese, because there's 20% of people in Hawaii that have Portuguese ancestry. It's not very well known. So there was a huge migration there in the 19th century and early 20th century. It's something that is really impressive. But back to the UN Ocean Conference. We'll also have a forum on local and regional governance, because decisions will be taken at the highest political level, but action is required at local and regional level. And also a water symposium, because to deal with tackle the challenges that the ocean has, it's important to work upstream, so other water issues. This will also be the first, Sérgio after may be more precise, but I would say the first large United Nations event outside of New York and Geneva, and somehow it marks the return to a certain normality after the pandemics. And in this return, many people talk about building back better. Personally, and there's also some work on that, I prefer the term build forward. And building forward, doing so in a greener and in a bluer way. We believe this is very important. The second point that I would like to make now, after just briefly introducing the conference, is you are all of you specialists on ocean issues, and you might think this is very nice, it's very interesting, we were very committed to this. Why is Portugal in the picture here bringing this issue to us? Well, as you may know, basically the ocean is very much in the Portuguese genes. Our history, the most known is the navigations of the Portuguese in the 15th and 16th century especially, but goes way beyond this. The sea is in our gastronomy, it's in our economy, it's in our academia, it's in our sports, it's in our poetry. There is a Portuguese poet I like very much called Virgílio Ferreira that has a line that is, from my language, I see the sea. And this really, I think, captures the connection that the Portuguese people and the Portuguese language, because the Portuguese-speaking countries are very much connected by the sea. I think this phrase really captures our connection to the sea. And therefore, the Portuguese diplomacy reflects this strategic priority and what we call blue diplomacy. Portugal has very much been at the forefront. The Montego Bay Convention, which is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, is perhaps the beacon in terms of law of the sea, and it's a mark of much that has derived from it. Personally, I have an attachment to it because my grandfather was the head of the Portuguese representation to that conference. But since then, Portugal has been always at the forefront, be at the United Nations, at the European Union, at the OECD. It's something that we are deeply committed to. And within this framework, me as Consul General of Portugal in California, I felt part of my job to raise awareness on what is happening, on what will take place in Lisbon. And it only felt natural to do it with centers of excellence of ocean issues, such as this one. So it's a pleasure to be here with Jennifer, with Barbara. I also have, together with Fiorenza, we organized this and invited a few Portuguese to join us with different angles. Tiago, Pitta, Cunha, he's a diver. So these three people there, it's not people that just talk about the ocean, they go into the ocean. So Tiago is a very passionate diver. He's the #1 person on ocean issues in Portugal. He has such energy, such passion by the sea. He just recently received the highest prize you can get on the Portuguese civil society because of his commitment to the sea. And he's currently the CEO of the Oceano Azul Foundation, which is the most important institution in Portugal regarding sea matters. Sérgio is a sailor, and he's as Fiorenza already introduced, and he very much is now dealing with the preparation of the conference and negotiating the political declaration, which will be the main outcome, and he will share what's going on in the run-up in New York with a view to what will take place in Lisbon. Stefan is also a surfer, and he is, as Fiorenza mentioned, with Indico Capital, and he just recently launched an investment fund solely dedicated to economic activities related with the sea in a sustainable way. And this is very important, and sustainability, not just environmental sustainability, but also economic sustainability. Because if things are not economically sustainable, as much as the environmental aspect is there, it's hard to make them go forward. Summing up, in the end, what I would like that all of us would get out of this, and in particular the students that are in the other room, it's a call for action. And no gesture is too small. Be it major scientific advances, be it such simple things like a beach cleanup. Everything that we can do is relevant. And so I conclude my introduction just inviting you all to watch a message from the United Nations Secretary General, Personal Envoy for the Oceans, Peter Thompson. Thank you.
With every breath we take, we are connected to the ocean. The ocean gives us oxygen, provides us with food and livelihoods. It stabilizes our climate, absorbing most of the heat trapped in the Earth system. Billions of humans, animals, and plants rely on a healthy ocean. But the ocean is in trouble. Rising carbon emissions are making the ocean more acidic, weakening its ability to sustain life underwater and on land. Plastic waste is choking the ocean. More than half of the world's marine species may stand on the brink of extinction by 2100 if we continue on the current track. Solutions exist that can help us restore the health of the ocean, but it will require action from all parts of society, from world leaders to the person in the street. The UN Ocean Conference, which will take place from June 27th to 1st of July this year in Lisbon, Portugal, provides a critical opportunity to mobilize partnerships and increase investment in science-driven approaches. I urge governments, industries, and civil society to join forces to take action to reverse the decline in the ocean health. When we protect the ocean protects us back. So we must stop destroying the life support systems of this planet and restore humanity's relationship with the ocean to one of respect and balance. I count on your support to make that so.
Great. Thank you so much for setting the stage for this introduction. And now we'll call in from the remote connection, Sérgio Carvalho from the permanent mission of Portugal to the United Nations. And I don't know if I am mute from here, or please do I mute from here or from my computer?
Who's next?
Sérgio Carvalho. Just, or maybe here.
Good afternoon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Probably hear me.
Yes.
Thank you.
We hear you.
Great.
Thank you.
Let me start by thanking my good friend Pedro, the Consul General of Portugal in San Francisco, and also you, Firenze and Stanford University, for the kind invitation. It's a real pleasure to join you today, and my hope is that our discussion can be informative for all of you and help promote a better understanding of what the UN Ocean Conference is all about, and the reason why Portugal is so focused on promoting ambitious ocean action, and why we are organizing an event of this magnitude on the ocean at this point in time when the world is facing so many other pressing challenges. I'll try to keep it within 5 minutes, and I'll be ready to take questions at the end. I'll start with the basics relating to the conference, why the conference and where does it come from. The UN Ocean Conference basically exists because in 2015, the 193 UN member states adopted a 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which includes a standalone goal on oceans, the Sustainable Development Goal 14, that is dedicated to the ocean and marine biodiversity. And having this goal reflected the fact that the global community was able to agree, I would say for the first time really, at least with this kind of wording, that the conservation and sustainable use of the ocean is key for our planet and for our common prosperity. And it also reflected this vision that in order to restore the health of our ocean and protect it for future generations, there were a series of actions that we collectively needed to implement by 2030. And those actions were, and to some extent, crystallized in SDG 14 with its 10 targets that cover different aspects that impact ocean sustainability, from marine pollution to conservation of coastal and marine ecosystems, curb illegal fisheries, promote ocean science, etc. And as you said, Fiorenza, at the top, when mentioned the centrality of the ocean for sustainable development as a whole, this is exactly what ended up being introduced for the first time in 2015 at the Sustainable Development Summit and reflected in the 2030 agenda. And this was a game changer. And how does this, how does the conference fit into this equation? In the absence of a universal international organization that deals with ocean affairs in a holistic manner, like we have, for instance, FAO that deals with food and agriculture, or the World Health Organization for health, the conference was born essentially out of the need for the international community to regularly assess where we are in terms of implementing Goal 14, but more importantly, to assess and agree what we can do, what we have to do in order to implement SDG 14 and achieve the ocean-related targets of the 2030 agenda. And actually, this was the overarching objective of the first UN Ocean Conference, which took place in 2017. And this is also the overarching objective of the second Ocean Conference to take place in Lisbon this year. And as you know, this conference will be co-hosted by Portugal and Kenya, and as Pedro mentioned in his introduction, will be the first major event, major UN event to take place outside of New York since the pandemic, and one of the most significant events on ocean affairs in the past decades. And while the first conference focused a lot on raising awareness of the ocean challenges and the importance of action in this regard, the second conference will try to go one step forward and be focused on raising awareness, of course, but also and especially on transformative solutions to address those challenges, and on science and innovation that can enable those solutions. And how does this work in terms of the agenda of the conference? Well, the conference has three formal streams of outcomes. The first one is a political declaration that is meant to reflect what the global community considers to be the political priorities in terms of conservation and sustainable use of the ocean. And we are now in the closing stages of the negotiations here in New York. The second concerns the results of the so-called interactive dialogues, which will tackle different aspects of Goal 14 and its targets through 8 dedicated discussions, which are aimed at promoting solutions and partnerships that generate and scale those solutions. And thirdly, or the third stream of outcomes, this will be the submission of concrete voluntary commitments that are aimed at implementing Goal 14, and any country, any organization, any association, university, individual can submit voluntary commitments supporting Goal 14. However, these are only the foremost streams of outcomes of the conference. In addition to that, and Pedro already made reference to this in his introduction. On the margins of the conference, we are organizing 4 special events that have their own goals and deliverables. One is a special event devoted to local and regional governments, and this wishes to highlight the role of coastal cities in supporting ocean sustainability, the importance of action at the local level. Second, we have a youth and innovation forum, which is about the contribution that young entrepreneurs, young scientists, and young activists can give to the solutions we need in order to address ocean challenges. A third event is the Sustainable Blue Economy Forum, which is about highlighting the role of the business sector, the importance of channeling finance to the right ocean projects and investments, and the huge potential that a sustainable blue economy has to support a healthy planet and our common prosperity. And fourth and lastly, we will also have what we're calling a water symposium, which will focus on the full water cycle, thus underlining the intimate relationship between goal 6 on fresh water and goal 14 on oceans. But besides this, and last but not least, there are also what I would call the intangible outcomes of the conference, or those outcomes that will only be perhaps seen further down the road. And these have to do with the fact that the conference will bring together different stakeholders from various industries and various walks of life, that have in common the fact that they share a passion for the ocean and share the fact that they're doing something that is ocean related or with an impact on the ocean. And we believe that this community building aspect of the conference is extremely significant, and so is the potential for these people getting together and developing relationships and partnerships that will eventually have a positive impact on the ocean. And lastly, I think it's fair to say that the conference has not only the potential to alert people to what is happening in our ocean and to the importance of the ocean, the importance that the ocean has in our lives, but also, and even more importantly, it has the huge potential to inspire people to pay more attention to these questions, and in their own lives, in their own industries, in their own communities, to take actions that can actually contribute to the long-term health of our ocean. And this is something that we definitely hope the conference will be able to achieve. I will stop here. Thanks again for having me, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Barbara Bloch from Stanford.
Well, we're getting set up. Hello to the online audience and to our class, my fellow sailors. And it's a privilege to be here. All right. All right, so I'm really pleased to be here to meet the consulate members from Portugal. Oceans are facing a global emergency, and we know that you and your heartfelt history of sailing across the planet and discovering so much of the world really understand what it means to have a UN Ocean Conference in Portugal. It's a call to action for our oceans. And we know that my role here is to deliver some science as to what the possibilities might be that we can help to solve together in terms of solutions. So we know Earth is getting warmer. We know oceans too are becoming more acidic. They're losing oxygen. That life depends upon fish stocks continue to be overexploited. And almost half of all the living coral has been lost. Our ocean and marine resources are critical to our planet's health and sustainable development. And the ocean underpins global food security, poverty eradication, our planet's health, and sustainable development. The well-being of humans on our planet depends upon our oceans. The challenge for ocean scientists is to detect anthropogenic change against an incredible backdrop of natural variation, which makes it very difficult for us to see how individual ecosystems are changing. So what I'm thinking about, and many of my colleagues in the Monterey Bay region, is how to build better ocean monitoring. How are we going to really know when our oceans are changing, and what is it we need to know? And where do investments from the globe have to go in order to change the game for ocean sustainability and to make our oceans become the oceans that we believe that we can have as a global community? But it's very difficult with 9 billion people interested in protein, of course, in developing countries, as well as very advanced civilizations of nations that are taking more of the tuna, for example, from the sea. We have to figure out how is it we're going to equitably distribute the resources, and how are we going to equitably monitor what's remaining. So we're going to need our smart sensors, autonomous gliders and drones, we think, advances in areas such as understanding where animals go with biologging, increased funding of data networks that work together rather than separately, and then massive investments in genomics and eDNA to better senses and trace what's living in the ocean right now. There's no question that ocean science, as well as earth science, has shown us that the ocean is warming up. We've been hearing about this from Dr. Rob Dunbar, one of the professors, of course, in our class. And he's emphasized to our students how the poles are melting right now, and that the tremendous influence of warming on the ice. Because of modern instrumentation that oceanographers from Scripps and elsewhere around the planet have put in the ocean, the ability to see our global ocean heat content is stronger than it's ever been. We learned about this only last week, that the accuracy from Argo floats of being able to say how many zettajoules of heat we have in the ocean and where exactly it's distributed has never been better. We can see that we're warming the planet, and we can see where the excess heat is. Similarly, across the globe, biologgers using modern technology, the same chips that are in your computer, have actually put the equivalent of laptops on thousands of animals so that we can better understand where they are and how to manage the oceans. And what we need to do is equitably distribute these tags so that this massive amount of knowledge that's coming from the Northern Hemisphere on tunas, sharks, and billfish can now be brought to bear on the Southern Atlantic, the Southern Pacific, and the Indian Ocean, where very few tags have been placed. So part of the Goose network is the ANIBOS, Animals as Ocean Sensors Network. And these teams across the planet have very little money to do what's really most important, and that is find out where the living resources are, find out where their hotspots are and how they interact with oceanography, and let the animals themselves tell us about the oceans and how they work. If we combine ANIBOS assets with sail drones out at sea that are able to sample the ocean remotely, or gliders, and basically take autonomous information about acoustics, we then open up the door for learning about our oceans at a level that we've never done before. What we need to bring it together across the planet, though, are massive investments in ocean data science. We have too many separate entities not working together to integrate how the oceans work. And we need money at the level of global nations in the investments that are in the billions to bring up the data in such a way that we can use it to protect our resources. My biologging colleagues in Antarctica have come out with several papers now that are showing that we can map all the organisms using the Antarctic realm and basically figure out exactly where they congregate, and even predict with the models that we have at hand where they'll be in the future. And it's with these technologies that we then can make special areas for protection, doing 30% by 2030 using data where we can actually prevent fishing from interfering with these regions. Now for fishing, we and others have come up with ways to observe fishers from the sea, and what we see is a challenge for all of us. We see that fishers are the other predator in the sea. They're across the planet. They're using their time, these are longliners on the planet, to set their gear, and they're interacting with the animals that are valuable to all nations. So in the Fish and Ships initiative that many of us have been a part of, we're trying to bring the ship data together with hotspots of fish data to better learn where areas that, for example, where the UN may be trying to protect, such as the White Shark Cafe in the Central Eastern Pacific, who it is that's entering those regions and who it is that might be taking from the sea animals that aren't being reported. And to bring sort of a new level of security to the ocean, we and others have developed tags such as the anti-poaching fast tag, which is now going out and helping us better understand in real time where animals are being taken from the high seas and who it is and what nations are taking them. I think to be bold, we need to think from the UN at a new way to organize how we manage the oceans. The RFMOs have been here for a long time doing their job, but it's not been done well enough. We think that we're entering a time of traceability with anti-poaching tags, with genomics, and with satellite tag tracking, that we can actually trace what's leaving the sea. Being able to see where the vessels are, where the animals are, and then now combining modern genomics to trace who is in the sea and where they're going at the dock could be the information we need to build a traceable system that the public owns and that we can then track animals in the sea with genomics, with environmental pollutants, and tell from dockside where they've come from. This type of building of capacity that the UN should be talking about can happen now. The technology exists right here at Stanford. We have communities around the planet using these technologies for both monitoring and eDNA and censusing, and they become the traceable solution for the future of building a sustainable ocean that is using wild animals. We need to move away from the wild as blue foods that our team here at the Center for Ocean Solutions has helped to develop and put out an assessment on, and I'm sure the Aquarium will talk more in this direction. We need to move into sustainable seas, in which, as Jacques Cousteau pointed out years ago, that we need to farm the animals that we can farm and do sustainably and feed protein to people that's being raised and cultivated. I'll end by saying that one of our students, Doug McCauley, has used this beautiful image that he helped generate a lot. I think it offers hope to my students and others that we're at the red line here in the ocean. We get to choose what we're going to do in the future. It's really up to us in our generation and the one that follows us to pick the right path. Key to that is education. I myself, along with my 40 shipmates, are going to Hawaii this week. On the weekend, we're boarding a sailing ship that's renowned for its capacity to teach college and high school students about the ocean. This is ocean literacy at its best. Our students will sail to Palmyra and they'll learn under the biosphere of the stars what it is like to be at sea, but more importantly, they will foster a love of the ocean and they'll be able to see a pristine coral reef. These types of activities are more important to Earth than we realize. We need to get people wet and into the sea. We need people to see the beauty of an undisturbed coral reef. And we need to, as the Aquarium does and folks around the planet are doing now, increase the interaction of people with the oceans. So we need to foster that at this UN conference. I think I'll stop there, sorry. And I want to thank you for inviting me, and I hope that we can build a dialogue that builds the science that could be fostered at the UN conference here in the 2022 period. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb, for really words of hope for all of us. So now Tiago, Cunha, Pitta from Pitta and Cunha, sorry, from Oceano Azul Foundation is going to speak. I'm going to ask the speakers to be concise in their remarks in order to stay on time and also leave a few minutes for questions that are already coming in. So thank you so much, Tiago.
Thank you very much, Fiorenza, and thank you for Stanford for organizing this event. And of course, thank you very much to Pedro Pinto, the General Counsel, also for the nice words of introduction to me. I have to say that my task is very easy now after Sérgio spoke about the UN Ocean Conference and after Ambassador Peter Thompson and now Barbara Bloch mentioned the ocean crisis. I can go straight to my point, which is about what is the importance of this UN Ocean Conference. Why is it important? And here I have to say that I think that the biggest reason for the importance of such a conference is because we are still not on the period of bringing solutions to the ocean. The crisis is still deepening. In large part, this happens because the oceans have not been on a priority for decision makers, especially for governments, for the UN member states, for the international community as a whole. So we clearly understand that in the last 10, 15 years, there has been movement towards climate action, but ocean action is not near that action, the climate action. We've seen what happened during these last 20 years. I don't think that there is a very significant decision made by the international community in the last 20 years in order to protect the oceans, in order to make them more sustainable. If we look into the Paris Agreement about climate, the oceans have a word in the preamble, a tiny word there. And so we need to promote the oceans, and this important UN Ocean Conference can do that. It can promote the oceans as a call to action, as we've heard here. So what can we do? What's important to do? I would say that there are two very key words for us, for me, for Oceano Azul Foundation. We need to mobilize and we need to focus. We need to mobilize because the oceans need our help. We all know that we need the oceans, but the oceans today need us as well. The oceans need us now. And so we hope that we can all mobilize under this call to actions and promote the concrete priorities. And that already takes us to the focus. We know there are many things must be done, but I would like to focus in two order of priorities and end my brief intervention with that. One is, of course, we need to use the Ocean Conference in Lisbon in order to push those issues that are closer to the finishing line into the line. These are issues that have been on the table under discussion for a long time. One is the treaty for the high seas. So all the ocean that does not belong to any coastal state belongs to no one. It's not regulated by the UN Ocean, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and therefore it needs regulation. And this is what the UN has been engaged on for almost 20 years now. I left the UN in 2002, and at that time, we were already discussing setting up a legal instrument for the high seas. We need the UN Ocean Conference to push for this. We need the UN Ocean Conference to push for 30% of marine protected areas by 2030, which is another global commitment that is spreading and gaining support. We need to use the UN Ocean Conference to push for the World Trade Organization, WTO, to end harmful fisheries subsidies, which are really one of the biggest problems in terms of the reduction of biomass, the extinction of species, the reduction of biodiversity. We also need to bring the oceans truly into climate negotiations in the climate COPs. So we need this nexus between oceans and climate to be much more clear. And we hope the Lisbon conference will also help us doing that. And then, of course, so these are kind of issues that are closing to the finishing line. We could speak of plastics, but those fortunate were dealt with in Nairobi at UNEA recently, and the international community has decided to engage in negotiating an international treaty for plastic pollution, which is very good news for the ocean. if we would move on all these issues that I mentioned, 2022 would indeed be the super year of the oceans. Finally, just to end up with the future, which new issues could be put on the table? I would like to say that the oceans have no COPs like climate have that will assess progress every year. So we probably need a new international setup for ocean governance. We probably will need an IPCC for oceans. Why not? If the IPCC has proven so important for climate action, why can't we organize scientific action to make political decision-making on oceans more realistic and more concrete? These are issues that I would like to leave you with so that you can start discussing them further. And I would probably finish with a more provocative even call that we probably need a Paris Agreement for the ocean as well. Maybe not as much as a legal instrument, but as an agenda with priorities, as a global commitment of the global international community. And thank you very much for having listened to me. I hope I was concise enough, and all the best here from Lisbon. Hope to see you here.
Thank you for such concise and clear priorities. This was really, really inspiring, set this ambition. So next, Jen, you want to come? Yes. Yes. So next we have Jen, and then Stefan Marais. Jennifer Dianto Kemmerly from the Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you, everyone, for having us here. I'm actually going to be brief as well, because I think our previous speaker just went right to it. You know, what is our role here? Tiago's voice had a lot of passion and urgency in it, because since 2015, when the Sustainable Development Goals were announced, and 2017, when I went to the first UN Ocean Conference and spoke, there were a lot of commitments, but here we are, what, 4 some odd years later, and there hasn't been a lot of progress. So we're going to advance the slide here a bit, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. The Monterey Bay Aquarium has been assessing the environmental performance of the global production of fisheries and aquaculture for 20 years. So we have been, civil society, that voice, trying to flag what is the environmental status of the way we fish and farm seafood. To Tiago's point, there has not been an international organization or framework to do this. Thankfully, we have the UN Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries and its associated articles that we ground our standard in, but civil society has had to step up and play this role. Academia in your research has had to step up and play this role. So we have a very urgent and important role to keep playing, because if the COP of the oceans actually happens someday, we will be there to support it, but in the meantime, we have a role to play. We also have a role to play in really trying to pull together partnerships with the private sector, with the markets of the United States who import the vast majority of our seafood, with the acknowledgement that more than half of our seafood is farm raised, not just wild caught, with the acknowledgement that most of our farm shrimp and crab is caught by small scale fishers and farmers who would love access to that equitable data and technology that Barb was talking about. But how do you make that big leap? This is not going to be achieved in siloed conversations. I'm not showing you any of my slide deck today, because the point I want to land on is this one right here. That middle picture by 2020, that was our goal years ago. Where are we? We just heard that the WTO still didn't end harmful fishing subsidies. We still know that overfishing is occurring. We're still trying to leverage technology to understand the scope of IUU fishing, let alone address it more holistically. We have to continue to implement science-based solutions, pardon me. So this is also a plea. There is a role for every single one of us to play as a consumer, as a business making a public commitment, as a student who is learning how to leverage your expertise. Get out there, be active, participate in Portugal. You can do it online, you can voice via social media, you can do it with your colleagues, you can join a conservation organization, or you can show up in Portugal and raise your voice there. Thank you for hosting, especially to the consulate. Thank you for making this happen today. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And finally, Stefan Marais, who's going to join us on Zoom from Indico Capital Partners.
Hello. Good evening for those that are in Portugal and good afternoon for those that are in the US. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much, Pedro, Portuguese consul, and also special hi to Tiago, a longtime friend and colleague in the ocean. And it's what I'm here to tell you today is talking to you a little bit about how we believe technology and science can help solve or alleviate climate action and ocean related issues. And I'm going to share just a couple of slides about what we do so that we then can have some questions about it. I hope this works out well. Let's see. You can now see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's see if it says start slideshow. Well, just to give you a little bit of a background, Indico means Indian Ocean in Portuguese. Is not by chance. Just as Pedro, I'm a surfer, and everybody's in the team are divers, sailors, swimmers, and so ocean lovers. And we are, a venture capital fund that has recently decided to launch an ocean-related fund. And an ocean-related fund particularly focused in Portugal, because Portugal has a big agenda around the ocean. Europe is, in the middle of the green transition, and the blue transition is part of that green transition, and Portugal is leading that effort. And one of the manifestations is precisely the fact that the UN Ocean Conference is being held in Portugal. Our background has VCs, so you would question, what are we doing here in terms of investing in the ocean? Because the ocean has indeed a lot of science and technology, but it's way beyond that. There's lots of small and medium-sized companies, and that's precisely why we launched the Blue Fund. In Portugal, the vast majority of the economy is connected to the ocean, both in terms of technology, tech startups, science-based startups, but also SMEs. And so we thought there was a great opportunity to try to contribute to the sustainability of the ocean by launching a fund. And we've been very fortunate to have launched recently a 50 million euro fund with investors from all over the world, and particularly investors from the US. So we have quite a lot of US investors, and even today in the afternoon, I was speaking with another half a dozen American investors that want to be part of this journey and contribute to solutions towards a more sustainable ocean. And so why is this important? Because as Pedro was saying at the beginning, you need technology and innovation to solve most of these issues, but you also need these companies that are delving into the ocean economy to be financially sustainable. And so essentially a venture capital investor like us has a set of tools that work towards deciding and selecting the best companies to actually tackle different problems that we are facing. And so a lot of these companies have lack of access to equity, they have lack of access to capital, and it's for the first time that they are encountering professional investors like us that want to help tackle these issues. For that, of course, you need a diverse team, which we have. I'm not going to show you all the slides either, but the diversity is needed not only in terms of gender, but also in terms of background, because really the ocean economy is extremely broad. It goes from coastal tourism to green shipping and everything in the middle. I can tell you that we are looking at over 300 deals at this stage, and they range from marine biotech or synthetic biology to sustainable aquaculture, all sorts of digital companies relating to weather, shipping, ports, and many other things that can have, if nudged in the right way, can have a very positive contribution towards ocean sustainability. So this is how broad the ocean economy is, and this is why you need a diverse set of skills, and this is also why you need a set of partners. And we have partners not only from all over Portugal, but from all over the world that can provide us with in-depth analysis and knowledge to tackle analysis and due diligence on these different markets. Now, this is all done not only for financial metrics and driven by financial reserves, but the Blue Ocean Indico Fund is obviously an impact fund focusing primarily on SDG 14, so life below water, as was mentioned already today also by Pedro. And SDG 14, as you will probably know, can be subdivided in a number of sub-targets, from reduced marine pollution to supporting small-scale sustainable fisheries and many other things. And we intend to, in every single investment we do, to actually measure knowledgeable and metrics that can actually contribute, and that can actually be not just a token metric about sustainability, but something that really has an impact and really has meaning. This means that because these metrics are quite often not yet established, and these frameworks are actually being studied and implemented across the globe, and we're part of those working groups, particularly in the UN, that we will have to be very careful at trying to balance something that is measurable and something that is also meaningful. Now, the last message I wanted to leave with you is the following. Everyone has a particular role in promoting the ocean. You can be an activist, you can be a student, you can be a professor, you can be an investor, but one thing is for sure: if we do not all work together closely, globally, in tackling the ocean issues that we find and the challenges, those themes that Pedro mentioned at the start will not be solved. And we are not still in a position that things are getting better. We are unfortunately still in a position that things are getting worse, particularly in some areas of the world, but the ocean is only one, and things move around obviously in the water. And so our contribution is essentially to really fund these businesses that can be good businesses, but that can at the same time become forces for good and forces for a sustainable ocean economy. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. And what a great way to conclude this. So basically, the time is now. This is the time to engage, whether it's research, discovering of the mysteries of marine life, education, investment, policies. All of this is critical, and we just cannot afford not to engage. This is a very exciting time, I think, for all of us. I want to thank all the speakers that did such a wonderful job of covering all of these many issues so clearly, everyone who participated. I want to go maybe to one question. There were many that related to actually areas beyond national jurisdiction. I know that Tiago has left us, but perhaps this is a question for Sérgio. Is deep sea mining going to be one of the topics for the conference?
Thank you, Fiorenza. I will try very quickly to answer all the different mini questions that are related to deep sea mining that were put into the chat. So very quickly, the ISA, which for those that are not familiar with the topic, the ISA is the International Seabed Authority. The ISA is a body that was created by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and therefore it is a part of the UN system. And actually, in this answers to one of the other mini questions, the ISA has a mandate to regulate these activities. Deep sea mining is the main mandate of the International Seabed Authority as created by UNCLOS. and they're doing it. They have been doing it for the last couple of decades, and most importantly, and most specifically, since 2014 or 2015. They've been trying to develop regulations for seabed mining, including environmental standards and guidelines that are supposed to try to balance economic needs with environmental protection. Now, this being said, we have two very important problems, or at least two very important problems. One is that when we talk about the deep ocean floor, we're talking about very sensitive ecosystems, arguably, I would say, the most sensitive ecosystems. And so these ecosystems can be massively disrupted by seabed mining or any activity, for that matter, that impacts the deep seafloor. And secondly, there's still a lot that we don't know. We don't know what will be the impact, or would be the impact of seabed mining in the short term, but most importantly in the long term. And I would say that we need much more research and much more certainty in this regard. And therefore, my personal position, and the position that is shared by many people, is that we need to err on the side of caution and not go ahead and allow something that might prove harmful and irreversible. And with respect to the last question, yes, we're expecting the issue to be discussed at the conference, at least in two of the interactive dialogues, the one on marine ecosystems and the one on international law. This last one on international law, we are expecting the Secretary General of the ISA to be part of the panel.
Great. Thank you so much. So thank you again, and a round of applause for the speakers. See you in Lisbon, online or in presence. Thank you so much. So, oops.